Hello, guys. Welcome to this second and final part of the journalistic speech, journalistic discourse. Sorry. Well, we are going to discuss right now some essential parts of what a text that has this nature is supposed to contain, right? As I mentioned before, there are a lot of different kinds depending on the publication. This may be more flexible. This may include more things, less things. It may be optional, some of them, but at least the ones or the let's say these different components that we are going to include into our text for this week are going to be minimum these ones. Okay, a headline, a photo, a byline, a place line, a lead paragraph, body paragraphs, and quotations that, even though they are final in the list, it does not mean that it must be in the end. No? Like there should be these quotes all around the paragraphs, the text. Or they may be focused on a specific part. It really depends on the effect that you want to reach. Okay, so let's just start with the headline. That let's say it's a more of a technical way to say title somehow, and of course this is a term that we use specifically for newspapers and their articles, magazines, and things like that. Right now. It is supposed to be catchy somehow and grab the attention of your reader. If you read a headline of a journalistic speech, you are supposed to know exactly and immediately what is it that happened, right? Sometimes there are some experimental headlines which are ambiguous somehow, yes, to catch the attention of the reader, but that is not the kind of headlines that we're looking for right now. Yes, we want them to be very clear, very specific, that you know exactly what happened, and sort of encourage you to read the rest of the article, right? So we have a couple of examples over here. No? It says the first part: assassin kills Kennedy. So there was somebody, a murderer. We don't know who was it, but he committed a crime and he killed Kennedy. Right? Well, of course, we may be referring to the president, or the former president, or the late president of the United States, and there is no room for mistakes over here. Right? A very important person was assassinated. And apparently we don't know who was it, right? But again, there's no room for mistake. There's no figurative language used, nothing like that, right? Even the title isn't their person, you see? Now let's take a look at the second one, right? That is more imaginative and fictional. It says, zombies take over the city. Again, this is something pretty unrealistic, but nevertheless, it is a simulation of what newspaper might report on such a eventuality, right? So again, the person, we know exactly, let's say, what happened. There's no room for interpretation over here, and we have this news about this flesh-eating demons that invaded somehow and overran the city. Sure, without the context, I don't know, that we can think that zombies may be addicted people, that may be stupid people or something like that, right? But we're going to imagine that we're dealing with this apocalyptic scenario, and it might mean specifically and literally that, zombies. Then we have a final one that goes a little bit more on another sort of news, such as this one. It says royal birth, and then we have a colon, and it says it's a boy. So it means that the son of a king, of a prince, or somebody like that was born, right? We can imagine that this, or infer that this news then took place in Britain, in the United Kingdom, when there's still royalty and they are really somehow cherished, or they are a matter of conversation by people yet, and it's relevant for them. So it may be England or Scotland, or maybe we were dealing with Spain, where there's also royalty. I think in Holland, yes, there's still royalty, and some other few countries, and it's a boy. So the baby that was born, that most likely is going to inherit some of the power and richness of the royal family. Well, it's a boy. This seems very trivial, but of course for the right kind of public, it's going to be very relevant. That is why what I mentioned in the previous video about the wide appeal, well, this may be widely appealing for a very selected group of people, of their countries, of a particular social strata, of well, different things. Okay, so there's the headline. Now we have in the next slide something really important, the picture. Okay, so as long as it is possible, newspaper articles, magazines, and the like are going to include a picture, hopefully or desirably from the exact thing that you are reporting. So if there was an accident, if there was again a birth, if they're dealing with a specific event, such as a concert, such as a political meeting, an election, something like that. Well, the idea is that the picture is of that specific moment. Yes, like while it was happening, the picture was taken. Now, sometimes it is impossible, so they include reference pictures that may be older pictures from another moment. Let's imagine that a person died or something similar, so a picture to illustrate while he was alive, and things like that. Okay, the important is that they are not just random images. Sometimes when they're like some other journalistic ideas, not about a specific event but some generality, so they sometimes put illustrative pictures over there. So let's imagine that they're talking about unemployment in general, right? Not about a specific person or something like that. So they may include a picture related to unemployment or people who are out of job, not specifically like a real person. Sometimes they are dramatic images and things like that. But again, the most important over here is that this picture is completely associated and reinforce the idea that we want to provide, and sort of again catches the attention of the reader. Then we have this in the slide 135, the byline, and well, this might seem a little bit simplistic, but it's actually quite important, because the byline is the name of the person who wrote the report. But it is not only the name, yes. Sometimes we have also some sort of a title, yes, and that is going to reinforce the credibility of the news that we are reporting, right? Because if this person has some sort of previous experience, or he or she has a profession that is associated to more credibility, or to reinforce the message of whatever news they are providing, if it's, for example, a doctor into let's say a medical journal or something similar. is going to provide much more, let's say, validity to what we're trying to express. If this person is a writer, if this person is a journalist with a lot of experience, or things like that, it might be very relevant to include this sort of information in there. Let's imagine that the person is an international correspondent or something similar, a word journalist. Well, it would be something much more important, right? Sometimes we may have, like in the example, the date over there. Sometimes the date is located in some other part, but this is a possibility. You can check violence online and you're going to find a lot of different types. So if this one seems a little bit simplistic for you, or you would prefer it to have it in a different way, it might be good to include it, right? Now, in the next slide, we have the place line. That is basically the name of, let's say, the place where the report was either written or where the incident took place. Yes. So here we have a pretty, let's say, common way to do it, that is under the picture, and we have the name of the city, right? Such as New York, colon, and then there's the start of the or the beginning, sorry, of the article. Sometimes it can also go, behind a quote. Sometimes it can be in a different place. Well, let's say that again, just like in the byline case, you can check online some different formats for the place line. Sometimes it goes city and country, only country. So let's imagine that it is a specific place, such as the name of an office, of a building, the name of a company, you name it, right? There are different ways in which we can use this place line, okay? Very well, next thing that we are going to deal with is the lead paragraph, okay? This is the first paragraph of the article, and in the lead paragraph you must include at least 4 W's, okay? Remember that when we discussed this in the previous video, I mentioned 5, so in the first and second, you are supposed to answer at least these 5 WH questions, right? The ideal scenario will be to answer all of them, but well, we're going to at least answer those 5. But in the first one, it will be at least the first 4, okay? I have it over here on a specific order, and it really depends on how you want to transmit the information. Yes, if you think that is more important, for example, let's follow the order that is here. Now, the first one that is proposed is who was involved in the incident. So in those events, when people, yes, who is more important than, or let's say at least it is as important as what happened, we would prefer to include the people or the participants first, right? Now, if maybe we don't know the identity of those people, or we consider that what happened was even more important than who was involved in it, well, it will be better to put the what, right? So let's try to think of an example. Let's imagine that there was an accident, and in that accident died the president of the republic, right? So in that particular case, sure, the accident might be really important and probably some other people died, but given the identity of the person who died, who was the president, well, we would definitely prefer to include the who first, right? Then again, if we're dealing with the same accident, but people who died were poor civilians, well, probably you would like to report the accident first, and then later on, like mention their identities if you have them, because such identities are not as relevant as the accident in terms of that people who unfortunately died in there were not really either famous or somehow of national importance. Probably they were really, really important for their inner circle, but not for everybody else. So that's like an example of how to decide like what to put first, who or what. Then where did it happen? Then when did it happen? Okay. Again, this is just a suggestion of the things that you're supposed to include in there, and a certain order depending on the relevance. But each different news might be like a different case and something that we require to like manage in different ways. Yes. So we have something over here in the next slide. It says, yesterday Joe Brown was shocked to find a rare bird in his backyard in Brampton. Okay, so think about it. How many questions does this answer? Yesterday it was a when. Joe Brown was the who. Was shocked to find a rare bird. So that is the what. He found a rare bird. Where? In his backyard in Brampton. Okay, so we have at least those 4 questions solved, right? Now we're going to try to deal with text of at least 4 paragraphs, right? And again, this is like a format somehow to guide you. You might find journalistic tests with a lot of different formats, but this is the one that we're going to follow over here, right? So paragraph number 2, we're going to try to include how and why the incident happened. Let's say if we have already included one of these in the previous paragraph, well, we just limit it to the other one, but the idea is that we include information about the how and the why. In the paragraph number 3, what we're going to do is to try to include at least one quotation of someone who was part of the incident or who witnessed the incident, someone who has interviewed who was already interviewed for the report, maybe to give a professional opinion, a technical idea, or something like that, right? So I propose that the quote goes over here in the paragraph number 3. Again, if you think it's relevant or more important, you can put it on the first or the second, right? Normally, it doesn't go on the final one, yes, unless it's something that wants to provide some sort of closure. But otherwise, we're just going to include it in the number 3, or at least 1, 2, or 3. And in the final one, you may want to include any additional information about the reader. He may want to know. So let's think about again this accident that I mentioned before. After you mention all these different news, mention the identities, solve the WH questions, provide some quotes of people who were witnesses or involved in the accidents, or maybe people who crashed their cars, or the nurses, or the health personnel, staff, security, police, etc. Maybe you may want to include something additional, right? Some statistics about accidentality throughout the year, some information, contact info maybe of the hospital if you suspect that unfortunately one of your relatives or friends were involved in that one, so maybe they can call there or write there in order to confirm if anybody they know were involved in the accident, or maybe a certain opinion. Well, a lot of different things related to it. It will be like additional information for the reader, right? That is not directly related to this incident. Okay. So that's it, guys. In the slide 140, you are going to find a very short example that has like 3 mini paragraphs. This is only like to sort of giving you an idea of what could look like, but just very simplified because we're looking for something a little bit longer, right? So assignment for this week, guys. You're going to produce, as I have been announcing, a journalistic test, including all of these different components that has at least 4 paragraphs with all these different, let's say, ideas and components and characteristics, and following everything that I said in the first video as well. You can work in groups of up to 5 people as well. So, sorry, 4 people, not 5, but 4 people. You can write in groups of up to 4 people. And what you're going to do is that you are going to select one event that happened in one of your second books. Okay, so all of you are reading hopefully almost finished the second book for the interview that we have next week, and you're going to select one of those events, and you're going to report it as if it was news, right? Let's imagine that you're reading Alice in Wonderland, so you're going to report the disappearance of Alice, yes, or maybe you're going to report the theft of the cakes, yes. Let's imagine that you're reading The Mist, so you're going to report this strange appearance of the mist. Well, I don't know, anything that you think is relevant and that is, let's say, relevant enough and ample enough to write this news about these ideas. Okay, I know that you are 4 people, so you can select only one of those, and that will be fine. I need that everybody selects one. No, it's only one, and you report it in that way. You can make up information about dates, about the writer of the article. You can just imagine that, try to adapt it so it is somehow, let's say, coherent to what you're saying, and that the person who writes that is coherent with the story. It may be a character existing in the story itself, an external imaginary character that you just created for this, let's say, text. The photograph can be something that you draw yourself, which would be really nice, or maybe it can be an image that you download from the internet somehow, but that is specifically associated to what you're saying. Okay, so that's it, guys. Thank you very much. See you then next week, and have fun with this. Bye bye.